You have in here, when I see so-called problem dogs, the problem stems from an imbalance of power and relationship, and not from the dog. So that's like the root that you see all the time. The person's weak. We have pretty much already talked about that, and it's the same thing you see a lot with leadership, where you've got someone that there's an imbalance of power, and where it gets more complicated with humans is humans then do their own kind of self-correct, and a lot of times they overcorrect, they undercorrect. If they're being too micromanaging, then they go all the way to the other side of total laissez-faire, and now people don't know what to do. Or if they're being too laissez-faire, then they go straight to level 12 micromanagement. And again, it's just a personality thing or a mistake that they're making, and it imbalances the relationship that we have with people, because it's like, well, I want you to tell me something to do. I want you to give me some guidance. I just don't want nothing. Yeah. And people lose that. Here's another one. It's important to establish your authority over a dog. Dogs want, need, and seek that kind of presence in their lives. You just hammer this over and over again. It's easy in some respects to get a dog to fear you, but it can be equally easy to get a dog to respect you. Just as true with human relationships, a dog will have more respect for you if you make it clear that good behavior gets rewarded and poor behavior has consequences. You may have noticed I have not used the word like or love up until this point in describing the human-canine relationship. That is not an accidental omission. I've purposely not used those words because too far often I encounter people whose immediate response to a dog is to try and get the animal to like them. Mm-hmm. In doing so, they make fools of themselves in the dog eyes, possibly put themselves in danger because they assume that they know that how they treat their dog is okay with a different dog, and mistakenly believe that because of all the nice things they do for their pet, their dog should obey their wishes and desires unconditionally. If you take one concept away from this beginning part of the book, it's this: don't mistake liking for respect, and don't mistake obedience for trust. We could be talking about human beings right there, clearly.
Especially kids,
Oh, absolutely, kids.
And employees, because it's not a popularity contest,
Yeah.
And that's where so many parents and administrators or coaches or supervisors, et cetera, go wildly wrong, is worrying what somebody thinks about them. And again, it's to draw back to the microcosm of the dog training process, is that, what's the end goal? Getting your kids or your employees or whatever to think you're cool isn't part of the process. It has no relevance. Well, it has no productivity.
Yeah, and what's interesting, Leif used to run the JOTC course, the junior officer training course, which is the guys, the young officers coming out of buds. And there was an officer. This is the other end of the spectrum. There was an officer that would come in to talk. And eventually Leif had to like back the guy tactically out of the schedule, because he would say, if you're an officer and your men like you, you're doing a bad job. That's not what we're talking about here. It's not that you want your dog to aggressively hate you, and you don't want your employees to think this guy doesn't care about me. In fact, I talked about this a little while ago. Like the more you care about your people, the more they'll care about you, the better performance they deliver.
Absolutely.
Right? If they don't think you care about them, well, then they're not going to deliver any kind of a performance other than the absolute minimum that's required.
Yeah. Well, and from the dog perspective, that's where there is a little bit of a difference in that with dogs, it's about engagement. One of the examples I use is how many times have you been to a park, right? And you see and it's usually dads, but there's a dad sitting on the bench on his phone, and his kids are swinging, playing tag, whatever, and he's oblivious. Like they could get kidnapped and they wouldn't know any better, unfortunately. Whereas that dad that's pushing them, that's playing tag, chasing them around, grab-assing with them, all that kind of stuff. Now, when he goes back, hey, honey, what'd you do? Oh, I took the kids to the park. But those are two disparately different experiences. Now, think about from the perception of where the kids are at, the difference. Like, it's night and day. Same thing with a dog, and that's one of the things I'm so adamantly against dog parks. Dog parks are the iPads to dogs what iPads are to kids. You can't have a substitute for that engagement with them. You can't outsource your relationship. And that happens way too often. Again, whether it's with kids, with dogs, whatever. There is an element of, just like with anything, is that there's training franchises that I'm actually planning on launching here later this year. to help with that process. But it's an augment. And there is no substitute for what you have with your dog, with your spouse, with your children, whatever. There's nobody that's going to be able to make that work for you if you don't want it. Just like somebody comes in, make me a good jiu-jitsu artist. Like, well, you got to want it first. Like, you got to be willing to put the time in.
Yeah.
And with dogs, it's no different.
To that point, here's back to the book. The bottom line is that if your dog isn't doing what he is supposed to or what you want him to, it's not the dog's fault. It's your fault.
Accountability.
It's your fault for not spending the time needed to train him properly or not being observant enough to recognize early on when and how your relationship may be out of balance. Many people are too lazy to achieve the results they want. If having a spectacular relationship with your dog were super easy, everyone would have that, and I wouldn't be writing this book right now. One common excuse I hear all the time is, I don't have time. Well, I can assure you, you do have the time. What you don't have is your priorities in the order they need to be to have a great relationship with your dog. This is a little bit of extreme ownership for your dog, and it's something we say all the time. Your team's not doing a good job. Whose fault is it? It's your fault. You're the boss. That's whose fault it is.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, and what I would hope is that the people that read that you can take that self-evaluation seriously, and again, I mean, when I read Extreme Ownership, I was like, yes, it's textbook, it's the same exact principles, and that, if you're the one in charge, guess what? If it's not going well, it doesn't work down.
Yeah. It's
not trickle down responsibility. It goes straight to the top, and that's something I'm adamant about with my employees is that if you don't understand, if you screw up within reason, it's generally going to be my fault.
Right.
If you don't understand what you're supposed to do, or something happened that you weren't prepared for or whatever, then ultimately it's my bad. Whether it's me putting the wrong person in the position to experience that, or me not giving you the guidance prior to putting you in that experience to be able to deal with it. Because with dogs, it's dynamic. Just like in the workplace. Training people to work with some of these dogs that we get in. Like, I mean, it's no circus. It is a circus, but it's no joke. It can be a circus, but it's the same type stuff,